Well, what are we up to today? I guess we better get into it. All right, so a couple things going on. This leaks, so I have to create a gasket for that. More importantly, I didn't have enough forethought when I put all this together to put any kind of flexible line on the caliper so that I could remove it. So that's part two, is we're going to fix the leaky gas tank, and then I am going to install some flex line from about here to here so that if I ever need to, or when I need to change pads or whatever else, I can remove these calipers without, putting unnecessary strain on that line. Well, I've got a part. First thing I'm gonna do is wash it and clean it all up because I'm not working on it. It doesn't need to be this dirty. So I'll get to that and then we'll get it back inside. Sorry, but I don't get to see it like this much, so let's just take a moment and appreciate how cool the rear suspension of this truck is. Personally, this is my favorite part of the QA1 conversion, is just how cool the suspension is in the back, how well it works for this. I mean, plus, that's just sexy as hell. It's too bad they covered up with a truck bed. Maybe I should do a plexiglass floor in mine, like those old glass bottom boats. I don't know. All right, so first things first, we're gonna clean this up. This was me in a hurry. So this is the flexible piece of hose that runs down to the rear axle. This is not okay. This is definitely not okay. So I bought some stuff. Here's the part number for the Willwood kit. If anybody's interested, it comes with focus 12-inch lines, all the fittings and adapters you would need to put this onto a rig. It comes with a little weld-on tabs, which we'll be using. But I also bought an additional piece of flex line and a distribution block, a T-block for the rear end. This suspension's at full droop, right? So it's not going down any farther. So we'll be able to gauge whether or not this is long enough. And based off that, I think it's gonna be, you don't need a ton of flex. As long as it'll go to full droop and not pull it out, really all you need to worry about. So I need to dig around in my scrap metal pile, find something to make a bracket out of. So let's get going with that. All right, so this is what I've come up with for a bracket. This is when I was trying to learn how to TIG weld, and so yeah, I still can't. But we're gonna cut that down there, just around there, drill the hole there. That will allow that piece to slip through there, like that. And then that will give us a connection for our 3/16 double flare on this end and our AN fitting on the other side. And then that'll go into this block right here, which is AN on both ends. So that puts that in there. And that's what allows those connections to be made. And it'll be a very similar thing out here on this end. There'll be one of these fittings like this here on that bracket that we weld in. The 3/16 line will be shortened and double flared to fit into that, and then it'll be a flex line that runs from the caliper to this fitting through an AN adapter. All right, so I got the bracket to mount that line fabricated up. It's not perfect, but it's good enough for what it's for. The fun part is I gotta weld it on. All right, there's the fuel cell, and literally the fuel lines run down the inside of the frame rail. So yeah, I'm gonna weld that with that, and either this will conclude the video and the rest of Flip Flop's Garage future plans, or I'll be back in. Okay, so it's welded on. I didn't blow up, don't judge. I TIGged it on. Again, it's Flip Flop's Garage, not Flip Flop's Fabrication, but that's pretty much stuck on there, so that's not going anywhere. I even soaked a towel with water to make sure I didn't cook my gas line, which is literally right there. So anyway, that's cool. So I'm gonna try and do this so I don't lose a ton of brake fluid. So what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work from this down. But if I'm gonna try to work from this cable down, but if I do that, I'm gonna have to plug the brake line somewhere. And this may be the best place to plug it, is right here at this cap. So yeah, what I think I need to do is put a plug on the end of this, squeeze off. So if I plug that, and then quickly swap, get focused, that to that with this plugged, that's going to keep all the fluid in the master cylinder. And then I'll be less concerned about the fluid that leaks out from here on out. I just don't want the master cylinder to sit there and drip dry. So let's go with that, and we'll get all this put together and see how this looks. All right, so you can see all that's clipped in and installed now. I've capped it off so that I can continue to work on getting, we're gonna focus on getting this line tight next, and then I'll probably make this connection at the very end. But as you can see, that's gonna be, it's not gonna be a ton of line, but it'll be okay. I mean, considering this is a full droop. So the only time this truck's gonna be at that height is, if it's on a lift or something. The rest of the time, it's a couple inches lower than that. So there's gonna be plenty of flex. The key is not to have too much that it gets bound up or caught in something, which is always a good thing. So I guess the next part is getting all of this worked out as to how much, where I need to mount the little tabs and get the line run for it out of that block and all that. So let's get all that stuff together, see where we end up. All right, so here's what I ended up with. Again, ignore the welds. So that's secured to the axle housing. This routes down and into the caliper using the 90-degree Willwood fitting. This will allow me to take these calipers off if I ever need to. Now, that's only sort of important because you can just pull the pin and slide the pads out, change pads. But, if you ever need to pull axles or something like that, this gives you the capabilities of doing that without overly stressing your brake lines. We are going to call this part 1 or the end of part 1 because I have to get some new line and rebuild that piece that runs across because it's pretty bent up. So I'm going to get a piece and redo it, and probably will for the other side as well. But yeah, that's pretty much the end of this. Part 2, we'll probably finish up the brake lines and then move on to fixing the fuel cell. So yeah, thanks for watching.